Welcome back to the Scarfey Talks Premier League podcast. In this episode, then we'll be reviewing Game Week 25, just gone over the weekend, and previewing Game Week 26. It's a quick turnaround because already the Game Week 26 starts tonight at 7:30 p.m. with 3 games on at that time. So a lot happening. This Game Week reminder that we'll be previewing eventually in the second half. It expands from Tuesday to Thursday. So 3-day game week before a pause in Premier League action. So this one is a quick turnaround, and I've got a great panel, 2 fantastic guests joining me. Firstly, Ollie, founder of Simply AFCB, regular on the Scarfey Talks Premier League podcast. Ollie, how you doing?
I'm doing great, thank you. I'm looking forward to getting into it. We're back again. Get in.
Absolutely, get in. A lot to talk about, and of course, your club Bournemouth in action tonight. So it should be a lot to discuss and a lot of good stuff. Thank you very much. And Mikey, also as a Spurs fan, your side are in action as well tonight. Big game against Newcastle United. We'll get into it. But how you doing, Mikey?
Yeah, not bad. I'm looking forward to the game tonight. My mum's from Newcastle, so I have a soft spot for the Toon Army, but I'm hoping for a win tonight, which is rare to come across for us, but hoping anyway.
What's a win? Never heard of it. But in terms of Spurs are going right now, no idea. No league win in 2026 for Tottenham Hotspur. But let's get straight into it then and start with the Game Week 25 review, because it started with a bang with a game down the bottom, Leeds United and Nottingham Forest. Ollie, if I start with you, I mean, significant result for Leeds. They were 3-0 up in the game, so it was no clean sheet in the end, but still a dominant display, and it just felt like Forest never turned up to the party.
No, I think they crumbled after the first goal, to be honest. I was thinking, Leeds are kind of, they kept striking. Eventually they got their goal. And it was inevitable that Leeds were going to win. I think I said on the in the comments of the podcast the other day that Leeds were going to win. I did fancy them to win. They're at home, and they showed what they're capable of. They're scoring goals at the moment. They look good, but Forest are in a lot of trouble at the moment. And I did say that I think they're dragged right into it at the moment. They didn't look good at all, to be honest. I know it's a hard place to go to, Ellen Road, but they did not look good. I thought the guy that scored in his debut for Nottingham Forest, that's a good positive sign for them to take on to their next game. But I thought all in all, Leeds had a really good performance, and they can take that forward. And I think a few more wins and they'll secure survival, to be honest.
Definitely huge release. Thank you very much, Ollie. But on Forest, Mikey, I mean, disappointing for them. A lot of boos, particularly at half time, but also at full time. So the feeling isn't good there. Of course, they've got to play the playoff games of Europe as well. So, they're at a serious risk of going down, being able to juggle both games. And, got to be careful, haven't they, with injuries. So I'd argue they've got it tougher down the bottom. But, can they take any positives in this game? Of course, coming up, they know that, such as Leeds United, who won this game, really tough games they've got. So I suppose that, Forest have got to look at these kind of positives and almost clutch at straws after a performance and result like this.
I mean, losing 3-1 isn't a particularly endearing result, especially against a relegation rival, and their next upcoming games post Wolves don't look too easy either, with kind of Liverpool, City, and Fulham in the next few games for Forest as well. So it's going to be a tricky one for the tricky trees. I mean, it doesn't make for great reading. Calvert-Lewin, a quick word on Dominic Calvert-Lewin. I think he's always been an underrated striker. Obviously, injuries have always kept him out, but he's scored his 10th league goal of the season, and I think he's his highest goal tally since that season for Everton, where he looked like he was going to be Harry Kane's understudy for years to come. And so I'm happy to see Calvert-Lewin back again and scoring again. But Forest, just 3 managers this season, obviously that's been made the extensive situation, and they look like they're getting into a kind of 24-25 Tottenham situation of battling right down the dredges of the league table near the basement boys, but also trying to juggle in the Europa League. So it remains to be seen if they can do a Tottenham. I honestly hope they don't, because I feel like that would somehow invalidate our achievement just a little bit if Nottingham Forest can do it. But yeah, their boos don't make for good reading. Their upcoming fixture list doesn't make for great reading of all the teams to play in the Europa League playoffs. Fenerbahce is not the one you want to be taken on when morale is low, especially with how intense Turkish fans can be. So it does. Yeah, I'm quietly worried about Nottingham Forest, but not as much as I am about some of the other teams kind of in that end of the such as your West Hams and your Wolves and your Burnleys, but they are definitely on the cusp.
Okay, thank you very much. Leeds United then kicking off the game week in style, and it was a big game Saturday lunchtime as well. Man United and Tottenham. Mike, as a Spurs fan, I will stick with you. What are your thoughts on the game overall, the defeat for your side, Tottenham, and also Christian Romero's red card? Did it influence the game as much as the score line, as much as the flow of the game suggested?
I think so. Firstly, this is unusual for me. I wasn't actually able to catch this game live due to having elsewhere employment, but I have since taken a look at the live chats for that One Football put out, etc., and the BBC match report, and obviously watching the highlights, and it's just sloppy again. Christian Romero is one of our most important players, and it's his 4th ban, I think, this season for one offence or another. He's going to miss 4 games, including tonight's crucial fixture against Newcastle, the North London derby, which is no small fixture next year. He hasn't had the best of luck in that recently. I think of the deflection and the handball at the Emirates in 2023, but also he just hasn't produced the most convincing displays. And then 2 games after that as well. So Romero's red card is probably the talking point from a Spurs point of view, because these performances just seem to keep coming back to bite us. Successive draws against Burnley and Man City, and then not being able to win against Man United, who, to be fair, are on their way to giving their most famous fan a haircut. But at the same time, I think it makes for ugly viewing, because we're now in a situation where every game was a must-win before, but every game is now like a cup final for us. We can't afford to drop any more points, and we still have an unforgiving schedule in the next couple of weeks, along with Europe to contend with. But in a competition we're less likely to win than that. We can't just put all our eggs in the Champions League basket, because it would be I think it would be a fool's errand to say we have more chance of winning that than we did the Europa League last year. So I'm not entirely sure where we go from here. There's been a lot of talk recently on the Mauricio Pochettino interview that he gave recently with the High Performance podcast, which I've watched clips of. I haven't watched it in full. It's in my YouTube watch later, but I've watched the clips of it. He's
Same.
More than ever vociferously planting a massive sign on his forehead saying, "I'm here, come get me." And the Tottenham board's like, "Yeah, you know what? We'll give him more time. We'll give him more time." So that's where I'm at the moment.
Mikey, thank you. You covered a lot there. You're absolutely right. Same boat as you. I'm in that. I've just seen clips, and it is when I get half term, it's on in my watch list to go through it all, because I like Jack Humphrey. I thought he was a great presenter for at the time BT, now TNT Sports. When he did present, and I think he's fantastic at what he does as well now. So it should be good. And of course, a lot of love for Maurizio. Ollie, I'll come to you. Anything to add on this game, particularly for Manchester United, if you can focus on them, because 4 wins in a row, and first goal, really nicely taken goal, clearly from the set piece, the set piece is clearly from the training ground, routine, and second goal as well, nicely taken, clinical from Fernandez. So not like world class for United, but again, they got the job done, and that's the most important thing.
They're just much more organised than Tottenham, aren't they? I think they know they come out knowing what they're doing. They come out with a point to prove every game. I think obviously they have a lot of home advantage. They are very good at home this season. A lot, not even just under Carrick. For the whole of the season, that's where they got most of their points. So I think before the game, you could say that Man United would be the favourites to win this, although they did get the job done and they did do it convincingly. I think obviously the game completely changed with the red card. I think that tipped it on United even more to get the win, but they did it in a fashionable way, despite obviously I don't think they didn't have to do a lot to be able to get that win due to the red card. But I think they can take that to get a 5th win in a row and against West Ham, and I think that is very inspiring for them. But I think organisation was on point. They got the job done, as you say.
That guy's getting closer and closer to having his haircut. But no, thank you very much. Next game then, Ollie, sticking with you. Fulham 1, Everton 2. I mean, Fulham must be scratching their heads thinking, how didn't we win this game? And fair play to Everton, and we'll get onto them in just a second. But Fulham with a big performance, hitting the crossbar on a couple of occasions just inside that first half. So they're really pushing for the second. Couldn't get it. But having said that, the first goal for them was quite scrappy and unfortunate from Everton's point of view between Mikalenko and Pickford. So give us your thoughts on the Fulham performance.
Yeah, no, I think Fulham would be annoyed that they didn't get anything more with that. Obviously, Everton have a way of getting results despite maybe not having their best game, and sometimes I think the stats are quite irrelevant with Everton because they can have quite a what we'd say poor game, but they will get points. So I think, but from a Fulham perspective, you've got to think, well, how do we not score more there? How do we not get more from that game? And I think they'll be a bit disappointed from that. But obviously, as we've seen from Fulham this season, it's consistency, isn't it? It's them. They can't seem to get a consistent flow of form. They'll win some, they'll lose some, and I think this is one of those games where they've lost and maybe they haven't completely deserved that. But I think, if you're a Fulham fan, you're thinking, well, we can go on to that next game and we can provide that same performance and we'll probably get something more from that. But it is annoying because I feel like, if you're Fulham, you're thinking, well, Everton, this is at least a point written all over it, especially at home. So I think based on that, I think they'll be a bit annoyed. But the performance, I don't think was terrible at all. But I think because they're one of those teams kind of downish at the moment down there, they'll be annoyed that they can't pick up those points at the moment. They need to get a few more points just to secure that survival early on, so then they can go on to get as high up at the table as they can.
Yeah, they should be all right, I think. But you're right to mention that, of course, in
Yeah.
terms of mathematically in particular. Ollie, thank you very much. Mike, if I come on to you, for Everton then, it is another positive result. They seem really on a European charge now under David Moyes, and they just need to improve their home form, in my opinion, because away from home, they're looking stronger than ever. Quite the contrary from the start of the season where they could only get a result at home. It's flipped on its head completely. But what did you make of their performance? Because they stayed in the game, kept it 1-0 somehow, and resilient and got the result.
Obviously, 2 own goals in this game. No matter how they're going, it's going to look like it was a less exciting game than it was. But I actually think this was even though obviously it was a Saturday 3 p.m. kickoff, so legally I have to say I wasn't watching it. It was a really interesting battle, because you've got team in 8th after the game. You've got a team in 8th and a team in 10th who are both within a couple of points of each other and are both within a realistic shot of getting European football, because obviously we've got the 5th slot for the Champions League if the coefficient stays the way it is this season again, as it was last year. So 5th place might get Champions League, as well as if by some miracle Forest go on and win, we could have a situation where we have 8 or 9 teams in, let's say with the Premier League having 8 or 9 teams in Europe, and you're looking at those 6th, those 7th, even those 8th spots, which is where Everton currently sit, along with teams like Brentford and Sunderland and Liverpool. Obviously they're having a worse season than they'd like, but around those kind of 6th, 7th, 8th spots, and you're thinking they could make a real charge for it. I think it was the Everton famous European nights under David Moyes, kind of 10, 15 or 20 years ago now, and it looks like he might be able to bring it back again. Obviously recent injury to Jack Grealish isn't going to help their European charge. It wouldn't for anyone. Grealish is an exceptional player when he's on the pitch, and he started off the season like a house on fire, much like Everton's home record before Tottenham came and ruined the party. But it was a assured performance from Everton. It was a manager who knows two experienced Premier League managers in Marco Silva and David Moyes, and David Moyes is just a bit more experience ultimately secured in the win today. On Saturday.
Totally agree. No, I agree with that, Mikey. Thank you very much. Can I stick with you then? Because the big game down the bottom, again, Burnley go without a win. In fact, it was a loss because they lost 2-0 at home. It's more against West Ham. This felt significant, didn't it, for West Ham, knowing that Nottingham Forest lost and with Leeds winning. It was always a case that West Ham, they could fall behind if they didn't get a result. And all of us were talking on this podcast, and a lot of football fans in general having conversations going that West Ham have to win this game, and it was a thorough performance from them, and they got the result. What were your thoughts on that?
I think it's looking with each passing week that Wolves and Burnley are gonna make up those 19th and 20th positions. Whether or not Wolves mount a late comeback and can leapfrog them to the dizzying heights of 19th remains to be seen, but I think it's kind of a given now that they're going to make up those two, with kind of, again, people like Forest, West Ham, unfortunately Tottenham fighting for those kind of to not be the last position going down to the Championship. But it was a much needed win for West Ham, who continue their kind of upward form trajectory ever since mid-January. You know, Crescencio Somerville starting to come into his own. Mateus Fernandes is putting in better performances, kind of showing why he was the small gleaming light in an otherwise dreadful Sunderland team last season. And to be honest, I think West Ham, it was a pretty comfortable win for them in the end. You know, obviously going away from home and winning isn't a given, and the fact that Burnley had a lot more shots than West Ham might not paint it, but I think from their point of view, a 2-0 win is always going to be a good way to go in, and Tati Castellanos is scoring once again, so it's all around a good win for the club.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. And, you know, of course, when we speak about West Ham, I do think about a regular on this podcast in Louis. And, you know, he was gutted that he couldn't come on with a West Ham winning. So when he next comes back on, he might curse them and lose once again. He has been on a couple of times now. They've got a result breaking that curse. But, Ollie, coming to you for Burnley, it feels like now that they will be going to the Championship. I think it's now, after this game, got to the point where we go, they need a miracle. Whereas before, it's just like, yeah, they're probably likely, but they can still turn it around. Now I'll get to the point where I'd say it's a miracle. Wolves, I think it's a complete no, but Burnley need a miracle. So what do you think, you know, of their survival chances after this game, and how do you think they got on in this game? Ultimately a defeat, but do you think there was positives they can take? Because they did have a lot of the ball and they did get in dangerous positions.
It's looking quite bleak for them, to be honest. I think they're lacking any sort of creativity in getting forward. They don't really have any game changers either, I think. If you look at their squad, there's not really any players that will come off the bench, for example, and, you know, have a massive impact. They don't really have any of that. I think their squad's lacking. I don't want to back Scott Park on this one, but their squad is lacking. They don't have anything really they can do apart from keep possession. I think that's what they did away at Sunderland as well. They had quite a bit of possession, to be honest, but they just don't do anything with it because they can't. And I think that is the problem with them. They don't really have much goal outlet. They're not too bad defensively, actually. They haven't been across the whole season, to be honest. I think defensively that hasn't really been a problem. But attacking wise, they're not scoring enough, and I think that is the problem they have. I think in terms of their survival chances, I think it's quite minimal now. I think this was a 6-pointer game, and West Ham came out on top, and I think that's a complete game changer for them. Obviously, West Ham are now looking less at Burnley, and they're now looking more at Nottingham Forest and the teams up there rather than obviously the teams down there, which I think is massive for them, really. I think that will inspire them to finally jump out the relegation zone. Obviously, Forest losing on Friday is also massive for them. I think, you know, if I was Louis, for example, I would be absolutely buzzing with this weekend. I think that's probably the best weekend as a West Ham fan to date, really. Yeah, in terms of Burnley, I think I think they're probably accepting that. I think the season is pretty much done from here. I don't think there's a lot they can do, especially with the squad they have. I think that's the most important thing to note. I think the squad they have is not good enough. In defense, yes. In attack, I don't see who's going to get those goals to keep them up. As simple as that.
That's the issue, isn't it? They got, you know, the likes of Fleming, but I just can't see, as you said there, him consistently getting goals. So he just isn't quite the level.
He's a good
that they're
player
looking
as
for.
well, actually. I
Yeah,
thought he
he
played
shows good
well for
signs.
Millwall, but he's not going to score enough goals to be able to keep them up. And I don't. It requires a team effort up front. Obviously, I rate Jaden Anthony quite a lot. He's a good player, but he's not going to score those goals. He's not consistent enough at a Premier League level. Fleming probably isn't as well. Broja isn't. He's had too many injuries, and he's not that good at being clinical to be able to get all those goals. And obviously the rest of their wingers they have, Lyle Foster, not good enough. You can see that. And obviously in their midfield as well, they've lost Josh Cullen, who's quite a good player for them and is quite good at progressing the ball, and he's out injured. So I just don't think it's a mix of luck, and I also just don't think their squad is gonna have that output.
Fully agree with that. I couldn't agree more. Thank you very much. Coming to you, Mikey. Arsenal 3, Sunderland 0. A dominant performance then for your North London rivals, but the game itself maybe doesn't quite reflect the scoreline. I mean, Arsenal, fair play to them. Again, the performance was good as well as the result, but I felt like Sunderland stayed in the game and Sunderland great chances to score. I just don't think it had 3-0 written all over it, because the reality was it was 2-0 for most of the game and Sunderland pushing to get a goal back and were punished for being brave. But what did you think of this game?
Arsenal look imperious this season. I think that's not a great shock to most people. And Gyökeres scoring a couple of goals here again. We spoke about him on the last roundup show, how he was coming into form. And I think this game showed once again that he's hitting form at the right time. You know, the criticism about Arsenal for so many years has been not having a clinical striker in the run-in. And it looks like they've, even though it's taken him maybe just a bit of time to adjust, it looks like he's finally starting to come good. And Sunderland were pushing. You're right. I think 3-0. It might not be as fair of a reflection of the game. I think Arsenal still definitely deserved to win, and they were still comfortably the better team. But praise to Sunderland for going to the Emirates and doing what not a lot of teams will do, and pushing Arsenal back, trying to play their own way. But ultimately, I think the quality of Arsenal was enough to get them through this game, and they kind of march on towards that trophy lift come May, and they've got another great chance to get through, and they've got a great chance to finally end 20 years of hurt for the Gunners.
Definitely. Thank you, Mikey. I agree with that. I don't think there's too much to add on this one. So, Ollie, next game then, Wolves and Chelsea. Chelsea 3-1 winners. They were cruising at 3-0. What were your thoughts on this one? Another damaging defeat for Wolves. Looked like they turned a corner in 2026, but now back to the usual ways, 3 defeats in a row. But for Chelsea, the form is really strong in the Premier League. So give us your thoughts on this one.
Yeah, I think it's harsh on Wolves a little bit, because with the position they're in, I don't think there's a lot they can do. It's very limited, much like Burnley, to be fair. You know, it's hard to get out position they have, and obviously the manager's been given a very, very tough job, to say the least. And losing Strand Larsen as well, they're having to play quite a new way with a new striker. Obviously, Adam Armstrong getting an assist, and their striker getting a goal, which is positive for them. I think they'll take that to try and get a few more goals in their side. And obviously, I think they need to be scoring more goals. I think that's the only way they're going to get more points is if they're just scoring freely. I don't think they're going to fix many problems in defence, because I don't think their defence is very quality at all. But they need to get their strikers scoring, which they have done. Obviously, Adam Armstrong on his debut assist, that's not bad for them. But Rossinia's side just look a bit too good. Obviously, it's good to see Cole Palmer back at it again. I think obviously it's been a long road of recovery for him. I know he's struggled a lot in the last few months, and he's been trying to play through that. And he looked back to, well, not fully back, but he's looking much better than he did. He has done in the last couple of months, and good for him for getting the hat trick. I think he'll be pleased with that, and I think so will Rossinia. But it shows the massive gap between the bottom and the top. I think that's just about sums it up, really.
Agree with you again. Thank you very much. Massive gap. Golf in class and quality. Ollie, sticking with you, your beloved Bournemouth drew 1-1 with Aston Villa. What were your thoughts on this game? So on paper, that seems like a decent result, but I want to know if you're happy or not with the draw.
Yeah, I came on here and predicted 2-1, and we probably should have won 2-1. The first 20 or so minutes, we were absolutely dominant. We should have scored, really. We had Emi Martinez dropped a save. He parried it quite poorly, and Evan Nilsson had a chance to head it in, but he couldn't get quite the right angle, which was quite frustrating. And then I believe he should have scored again just before Morgan Rogers hit one in. A really good finish, to be fair. I thought, Villa did well to get that goal. It would have been annoying if we lost that, I have to say, but The goal from Rayan on his second game was really, really good. He looks like a quality player already. I think we have an absolute gem on our hands. But I thought we played really well. We managed the game well. It was a shame to not get a winner, but I'm happy. I think I would have said before the game I would have been really pleased with a draw. And that's another point we can add on to onto the table. But yeah, no, we looked really convincing. Attacking wise, we were all over the place with it. We were hitting shots left, right, and centre, and it's just a shame that we couldn't get another. But we showed Villa what we're about. And obviously the last game we played against them back in November, that was probably one of our poorest performances of the season, losing 4-0 at Villa Park. Despite us having a lot of chances. Because every time we played Villa, we seem to get a lot of chances, but they seem to defend them quite well. And Emi Martinez always pulls an absolute masterclass against us, but we couldn't save the Rayan one. But no, I was really happy with it. I think it's especially a good draw and good performance to take on to today, because I think we would have been really disappointed to not get a point at home and have to go on to Tuesday's game. So I'm happy with that. And it's very convincing of us. I think it definitely shows the progression we've made since we finally defeated our winless run against Tottenham, because I think even in that game we looked very shaky at times, but we were very organised. So I'm happy with that.
Okay, thank you very much. But Ollie, sticking with you, where do you think this leaves Unai Emery and Aston Villa? Because I keep going back to it, but he's claimed a few weeks ago that Villa aren't top 5 contenders, and since then they've dropped quite a lot of points. I don't know if it was a result or maybe, quite possibly. Of course, he knows, the team and the squad, the dressing room, the situation a lot better than we do. So maybe he knew this kind of fall off a little bit was coming. Not drastic, but it's a little bit of a fall off. So for Villa, what's the aim now? Because any small talk of a title race or anything like that, of course, will now fade away.
Yeah, I think they're still I still think they're a quality side, and I think they are. I think the key thing about Villa is they are well drilled, and all the players know exactly what they're doing. You could see that, when Morgan Rogers scored that goal, they looked so. Their build up was so organised and it was so fluid, and Unai Emery still has so much good energy in that Villa side. And I think obviously when he said that, I was thinking like, what you want about? You're a quality side. I've always thought that about Villa and Emery. They're very, very well drilled side. And I think they'll still get top 4. I don't see that changing. I think it's maybe a bit of rough form for Villa potentially, but I think they'll recover and they'll do what they're doing again. Nothing wrong with that. It's obviously just a shame that maybe they haven't got the points they've wanted to recently. But I don't see this rough form happening for long, and I still think they'll get top 4. I don't know what he's on about a non-top 5 side. I personally, I'm confused about it as well, to be honest.
Some say he tries to take the pressure off his players, and I get that, but for me, that's also undermining your players and what they're
It's
capable of. The
harsh,
opposite
isn't
of
it?
it's harsh, and
Demoralizing.
I think so. Yeah, I'm
Mm.
absolutely fully with you. And I think last year as well that Unai Emery took a completely different approach. And he's asked, could you be title contenders? Could you get top 4? He's like, I would never set a limit on what we can achieve, in his words. So
I don't
I
think he's a
don't
good
like to say to him,
speaker,
no,
personally.
no, no, of
He
course not.
doesn't
No, he
like the
doesn't.
press, does
No,
he? Every time
no,
he's in an interview
no.
with the press, he always has a really weird
Awkward.
demeanor about him. I don't really understand
He's
where he's
key.
coming
And he
from
always
half the
he looks
time.
his watch and he goes time's up and things like that a lot.
It's
He's very like that.
strange.
Very strange. But no, it's interesting you say that. But I'd like to say, Unai, what's changed? You wouldn't set a limit on your ambition last year. What's changed? Are you unhappy? Or, that's what I'd be asking if I had the opportunity to him. But Ollie, thank you very much. Mikey, if I come to you on the next game, then Newcastle and Brentford, 5 goals at St James's Park. Newcastle 2, Brentford 3. Firstly, on Brentford, another huge result for them on the road as well, where they so struggled on the road in 2025 and the first part of the season. But now, as we've progressed nicely through the season, they've really picked up on the road. So, what did you make of this performance? Because a lot of people will say, okay, they're only good if you get Kevin Schade and Thiago involved. But I think this game maybe proved that wrong a little bit.
This game was very, very good from a Brentford point of view. Obviously, they're making a surprise challenge for the European places. As I mentioned earlier, everyone thought that at the beginning of the season, when they lose their manager, they lose their two top scorers, they lose their backroom staff, they lose X, Y, and Z, that they're going to be they'll be down near the bottom, and they've exceeded any and all expectations. They're performing better than they did in almost any iteration of Thomas Frank's Brentford side, and Keith Andrews has them playing, if not beautiful football all the time, entertaining enough to not put the Brentford fans to sleep. They've travelled the long journey from West London up to Newcastle and gotten a result. It's not an easy place to go to get a result, St James's Park. Tottenham fans know that very well enough by now. And it's an intimidating atmosphere, and to go there, especially when Bruno Guimaraes is doing his best to be a thorn in the side of everyone and still come away with a win, it's not an easy task. Dango Atara, as Ollie mentioned last time out, is an amazing player. I really, really like him, and if he can get everything clicked, there's world-class potential in there. I really do believe that. I might be embellishing just a little bit, but I'm of the opinion that he could be one of the best wingers in the league, and he proved it here. Goal and assist. Igor Thiago scoring another penalty. All you can do is score what's in front of you before Bruno Guimaraes returned the favour, and then Ouattara came up with the winner. It was a thrilling game, I'm sure, to watch. My friend was raging at me. Again, my friend is a Newcastle fan. He was raging at me at full time, and it's going to be really interesting to see how Newcastle try and bounce back against another team who's in a bit of a shaky situation right now in Tottenham. And I think from a Newcastle point of view, it's a very disappointing result. Brentford looked for large parts of the game the better team, and at home, I don't think that's a necessarily good sign. And it, for their lofty ambitions, where they're sitting right now, 12th in the league, 10 defeats already this season. It's not only the 17, 18, 19th, 20 have more defeats than them and Fulham. And it's not great reading. And I think there's a lot of improvement to be done. A lot of talk about whether Eddie Howe is still the right man to take them forward. I'm not going to weigh in on that. I don't know enough about their current situation, but I would say that if it continues and they finish mid-table, which is definitely not where they want to be given their level of investment in recent years and the ability of some of the players in that squad, conversations might have to be had around that subject.
Okay, Mikey, thank you very much there. And just to ask you a tiny bit more on Newcastle, without going into too much detail, like you said there, you didn't want it too much. But Eddie Howe come out after the game and was very honest and took the brunt and took the responsibility, kind of going, look, this is on me, the buck stops with me. And also the likes of Kieran Trippier, of course, Newcastle captain and the oldest senior player there, let's just say one of them anyway, and admitting that they've got to take responsibility together and to find solutions. So do you think that honesty is quite refreshing? And you mentioned as well that Newcastle will be interesting to see. We'll get onto the game, of course, but how they respond. But for me, it seems like, everyone at Newcastle is united in finding the solution rather than throwing the manager and the players under the bus. Quite the contrary at Tottenham.
Yeah, no, there's always been a sense of togetherness. Newcastle's a very community-oriented club, from what I can tell. Their fans are fiercely loyal and the players buy into that. The whole story about Sandro going to a Weatherspoons when he got there and having the table reserved in his name, just kind of getting a feel for the culture. And Bruno Guimaraes' umpteen million celebrations whenever he gets on the score sheet. They all seem to just get it, and I think there's a genuine togetherness. I think Eddie has gotten them out of ruts before. He definitely can get them through this one as well. I think he's probably the best pound for pound at the moment, along with maybe Liam Rossini, the best English manager in the game at the moment. And I back that claim. And I know that he's got players missing. I know that Sandro Tonali, Joelinton is missing, which is a big miss for them. That three-man midfield is so important to the way they play. And if one of them drops out, Joe Willock and Lewis Miley, while great players in their own right, don't match the creativity of Tonali, the industriousness of Bruno, or the sheer running power and kind of tackling ability that Joelinton offers. And so when you take one of them out, it disrupts their midfield balance. And I know he can get it through. I know he can get them through it, but it's going to be a lot of work.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for that. Do appreciate it. Thank you for reviewing that game and discussing Newcastle as well. Ollie, coming to you then, Brighton and Crystal Palace. It was a 1-0 win for Crystal Palace. So can I ask you about them firstly? Because it feels like now that in the end they had a good January window. They've now got players returning from injury. They've won this game and ended their drought. I think Palace are in a lot better place than they were just 2 to 3 weeks ago. And I think they're in a lot healthier position. And I fancy them now, well, from now anyway till the end of the year, to go on a good run. Oliver Glasner confirmed today that he'll leave Palace no matter what. So, that he's clear on that. He wanted to clear that up with the media when asked. But I still think that Palace can end the season strong and, end what's been still a really good period in a positive way.
Yeah, I don't think it's as bad as it seems for Palace. I think they've got, obviously the board have got time now to choose what happens next with the manager, and they'll be searching. And it relieves the pressure off Glasner to probably achieve, because obviously he's leaving anyway. And it seems like the board are obviously content with him staying for the rest of the season. So now that it's gelled out, I think that will be the key to them getting a few results between now and the end of the season. Obviously, there's a lot of changes in the squad with them losing players, and obviously Mateta being injured now. But obviously, Strand Larson could have scored, actually, to be fair. And I think that would have opened his account, and I think that would have shown what he's about. But I think they'd be happy to get a win. Obviously, it's a Derby Day win, which is even sweeter for them. I think they'll be over the moon with that. I think that might be a bit of a turning point. We obviously don't know for sure, because I think with Palace in particular, what happens between I think there'll be quite a lot of happening behind the scenes with them. I think we can see there's a lot happening in the background with Palace at the moment. Obviously, it's not worth getting into because we don't know. But I think they'd be on the pitch. I think that's all that matters at the moment, and they got a nice result. And I think they'd be absolutely over the moon with that.
Couldn't agree more. Thank you. And can I ask you, Ollie, though, about the opponents and rivals in Brighton who've lost this game? A lot of boos at full
Yeah.
time, and the stadium was very empty throughout the game, especially as the game continued on. And especially after that Palace goal, it was like not only a library but an empty one as well. But in a more serious note, for Brighton and in particular Fabian Hurtzler, it feels like potentially coming to the end of the road. And I don't mean now, but I'm thinking at the end of the year. I think a lot of Brighton fans are questioning the project. And that's not something you've been able to say a lot at Brighton, because a lot of people have faith in upstairs and the board and direction they take. But maybe Fabian Hertz are not the right appointment, or maybe wrong man, wrong time, it looks like at the moment. So, yeah, give your thoughts on this current situation of Brighton, who are in bad form.
Yeah, I think in recent years anyway, in the past like 10 years or so, Brighton have never been that club that have had almost a protest against the manager and maybe the way that the project's going. And for them to boo and leave the stadium early, etc., doesn't seem like Brighton fans. And I think when that's happening, there's clearly something wrong. I don't think Hursley's the way forward, really. I don't believe that much will happen under him if they keep him. I looked at Brighton's squad earlier, actually, and I thought they have a really, really good squad, and I don't think they should be where they are with that squad. They have a lot of really talented young players and really talented players, full stop, really. And the fact that Hursley's not really succeeding with that squad is a lot telling on the manager, I think. I don't know how long he has left, to be honest. I'm really surprised he's still actually in a job. But I think that's kind of, I don't mean to be reactionary, but I think that's what you get for hiring a really young manager. I think it's inexperience, personally. I don't think he has a plan B for certain situations, and obviously he's under pressure now. And as a very young manager, he doesn't know what to do. He's barely been in that position before, to be honest. So it's quite difficult. I feel bad for him, really, because there's not a lot else he can do with the experience he's got, other than to try his hardest. But I don't think he's the way forward for Brighton. I think they probably need to go for someone that's had a few years experience, that gets the way that Brighton play, because obviously Hursley, seeing his tactics, he does play in a way that Brighton want him to play, but he hasn't got the, as I say, experience to know how to change it, adapt it to opposition, etc. Hence why I think in the next few weeks, I don't think he'll be there anymore unless there's a sudden change.
Agree with that. Thank you very much. Before we move on to the Game Week 26 preview, I want you both to talk about this game. So it was a big one and a crazy one as well. At Anfield, ended Liverpool 1, City 2. Starting with you, Mikey. Summarize that as best you can. Give me your thoughts on this game. City prevail in the end. This game just felt significant, didn't it, for the title race? From Donnarumma's fantastic save to the craziness at the end with the goal difference. But City getting the 3 points, and Liverpool were in a position of power, being 1-0 up. I don't know about you, but when Liverpool were 1-0 up, I couldn't see City winning this at that point.
What I find funny about this game is that City were better in the first half than they were in the second half, but it was in the second half that Liverpool took the lead. If I'm getting that right, hang on. Please tell me I'm getting that right. Yes. Yeah, so I find that in itself quite funny in that Liverpool were worse in the first, were better in the first half than they were in the second, and then somehow they still ended up in a winning position because they were great in the first half, and then City came out and were better in the second half. You know, their City recently have been kind of a one-half FC. Kind of, they do really well in one half and then run out of energy, lose focus, get complacent, whichever of the options it is, and then obviously Szoboszlai's free kick. It's another stunning free kick against a really high-quality goalkeeper. You know, he's done it to David Raya and Gianluigi Donnarumma now, who are comfortably two of the top three keepers in the league, along with his own keeper in Alisson Becker. So I think he without them, he would be maybe in a similar position to Tottenham. I fully believe that he's been such a good player for them, and along with Ekitike as well, are standouts for Liverpool's own Player of the Season award. But Man City have gotten away with one there. Szoboszlai getting sent off will be really damaging for them. I know it will. Wirtz is good, but Szoboszlai, again, he's been performing. He's been proving they're week in, week out why he's one of their best players, and it's going to be very damaging to lose him for however many games he's gone. I don't know if it's 1 or 3. Either way, it will be damaging for them. And the refereeing controversy at the end, it was all going. We had all the makings of a classic Premier League. A Premier League classic, a classic Premier League game, Barclays, if you will, like end-to-end stuff, dramatic last-minute winners, title races on the line, and then the referees decided to make it all about themselves. By the letter of the law, yes, Szoboszlai fouls Haaland, which is a denial of a goal-scoring opportunity, but then Haaland fouls Szoboszlai, which stops him being able to get to the ball and clear it off the line, so that's why the goal's been ruled out. That's why Szoboszlai's got a red card, and why it's a free kick to Liverpool in the first place, and I understand that. But after, maybe it's more of an emotional reaction than a logical one. But it just sick and tired of talking about refereeing and VAR and everything when they can't seem to make the right decision. They made the one decision that benefited absolutely no one, and both sets of fans were up in arms about it. I'm tired of talking about it.
Frustrating. Thank you very much, though, for mentioning it. Ollie, coming to you, can get your thoughts on the game, but in particular that decision to disallow City's third goal. Do you agree with me that common sense has gone from football? I think you let the goal stand and it benefits everybody. Like Liverpool don't want to lose Szoboszlai for 3 matches. It might just be one, we'll find out. But at the moment, for 3 matches, through a straight red card. So they don't want that. So it doesn't benefit Liverpool at all. City, it's a goal chalked off. So it doesn't benefit them at all either. That's not good. Be it goal, of course, when you score a goal, you want it to stand. And for all of us watching as well on TV, neutrals, everyone inside the stadium, you want the goal to stand. And Liverpool, of course, it sounds strange to say they want the goal to stand, but they do because they don't want Szoboszlai to go. By the letter of the law, the referee's done the right thing. But for me, surely there should be something in the rule book that goes, sometimes referees can use their brain, they can use common sense where applicable, where appropriate. For me, this is the perfect scenario. It doesn't benefit anybody. And football's about entertainment, and it's about, the collective. For me, this decision represents nothing that football's about.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting one. It is really interesting, to be fair, with this decision, I think. I completely get it. I think after some time and kind of thinking it through, I was like, oh yeah, no, this is actually the right decision. I think the referees explained it very well. It's a bit of a weird one, really. I mean, I get why they've given it, and despite it obviously being negative for both sides, but I do see where they've come from, and yeah. I think it can be debated either way. I think it's down to kind of which way the referee wants to do it, because I don't blame the referee really for making that decision, because it's about consistency really at the end of the day. That's kind of what I worry about kind of making the right common sense decision. Sometimes referees will make the wrong decision because they think it's the right decision to make, and then it gets a bit complicated. So I see why he's done that. And usually referees in that scenario would get things wrong. And I do respect the referee for making the right call, discussing it, and I think that is a good use of VAR. But I do kind of agree with you, but I think it's down to consistency at the end of the day. And I feel like if we allow referees to kind of make the most positive outcome decision as possible, it does have some kind of consistency errors with it, if you get my drift.
I do. Thank you very much. Appreciate you both talking about that game. Of course, a huge one. And Pep Guardiola 1-0 down, was slumped in his chair and looked like, along with the way that City are playing, that this was done. In the end, with Mikel Arteta, I'm sure there would have been the one and only slot as well, together slumped in their chairs. Mikel Arteta on the sofa at home, I'm sure. But let's move on to the Game Week 26 preview. So, due to time, if on all the games I can get both of your instant kind of thoughts. So, thoughts ideally under 60 seconds. And if it's your club, please do go into more detail. We'll get score predictions at the same time as well. So, first game being Spurs and Newcastle. I'm going to come to the Spurs fan on the panel, of course, in Mikey. So, Mikey, give us your thoughts and wrap it off with your score prediction as well.
So obviously, game kicking off in a couple hours. We've been hit with yet more injury issues, with Destiny Udogie going down. Christian Romero begins his 4-game suspension, and it's ironic that Udogie could be back before Romero is. We also have, I think, some of the people have been leaking lineups again. It looks like Gray's going to start at right back, with Spence coming in at left back. I'm personally an advocate for seeing Sousa get a run out. I think he looked very positive from what I've seen in his highlights against Man United, although it's not hard to look positive in that performance, especially for a Spurs team. But again, it's a big game for two teams who haven't been in the best of form. They are in the bottom half of the table, and they ideally want to be challenging for European slots, even the title come May. And neither of those clubs are going to do it. We definitely, for we being Spurs, definitely need to get a result on the board. We're going to have a massive, almost 2-week break before the derby next Sunday. And so being able to carry kind of positive vibes for that long will hopefully go a long way to doing that. But if we lose yet again and have to wait 2 weeks for another shot to get our first win in 2026 in the Premier League, and we're going to have to wait till the third week of February to do that, it's going to look even worse for us. So it's an absolute must win for both teams. Obviously, I would love us to win, but for Newcastle, the game means a lot as well. And there's a lot riding on it. And I think a draw benefits absolutely no one today. And both teams should gun for the win.
Absolutely. And can I get your score prediction?
Oh, yeah, sorry. I want to be hopeful. I'm not. I'm going to go 1-1. I think it's going to be a draw. I know a draw benefits no one, but I don't see either of these teams having the confidence to take the game by the scruff of the neck and take it to the opposition. Spurs realistically should, but the mood around us domestically is so bad. I can't see the crowd getting behind the team, and yeah, with the derby coming up as well, people have one eye on that as well. So I'm going to back a 1-1 draw, I think.
1-1 draw. Thank you very much. Ollie, can I get your thoughts and score prediction for Spurs and Newcastle?
Yeah, in contrast to Mikey, really, I think both teams as he says, are going to look to get the win. But I don't think a draw is on the cards here. I think one of them is going to win this game, because it's going to be tough for both teams. But I feel like one is going to nick a winner, and I think that'll be Spurs today. I think they'll win 2-1. I think Newcastle go 1 up, and Spurs will have to find a comeback, which they will do today.
There we go. Interesting. We're happy with that. Thank you very much. Chelsea and Leeds then the next game. Ollie, we'll stick with you. Give us your thoughts and score prediction.
Yeah, I think Chelsea will win this one. I think it will be closer than people think it will be. But because Leeds are away from home, I think it'll be a tough one. I don't think their away form is great. They're much better at Ellen Road, and I think they will struggle against a very well organised Chelsea side, as we've seen. I think Chelsea will win 2-0. Win 2-0.
You're going for a 2-0 Chelsea win at Stamford Bridge, keeping up their good form under Liam Rosina. Thank you very much. Mikey, can I get your quick thoughts and score prediction?
Yeah, it looks like it's going to be relatively, based on current situations, although Leeds did get that good win, I think it's still going to be, this is Chelsea's game to lose. Don't make that mistake. I think they'll definitely come out firing. Cole Palmer's hitting form at just the right time, albeit he did score 2 penalties, but again, you can only score what's put in front of you. I think it's going to be a relatively comfortable 3-1 or 2-0. I think it's going to be a 2-goal margin. I think it'll be either 3-1 or 2-0.
Okay, thank you very much. Sticking with you, Mikey, can I get your thoughts for Everton and Bournemouth and your score prediction before we come to the Bournemouth fan on the panel?
I'm sure he'll make better points about this game than I will, but I'll keep mine brief. I think, again, it's a relatively it's a big mid-table clash. Everton slightly higher in the table than Bournemouth are, which you might not have expected at the beginning of the season based on how Bournemouth started. But I think I still think this is going to be Everton's game. I want to say Bournemouth just for Ollie up there, but I still think it's going to be I think Everton are going to win this. I'm going to predict 2-1. I think the home crowd have been getting on them recently, and Everton are starting to show why they are in the top half. So I think it'll be Everton's win. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much, Ollie. I made you wait for this one. Give us your thoughts then as a Bournemouth fan, and then end with the score prediction, but no rush.
I think it'll be a difficult match for us, really, despite Everton not being great at home this season. I think that's one key point about Everton this season. They've been brilliant away, but not so good at home. But I do think a point would be good for us. I don't see us winning, to be honest. It's obviously, a midweek game away from home. That's not easy for any team, and I think we're going to go in trying to score as many goals as we can, try and be as organised as we can against a very well gelled Everton team, and obviously based on the result around Christmas where we lost against Everton, which was a bit of a shock for us, really. They look a lot better than then as well. Moyes has gotten playing good football recently. We've caught them at a bad time. They haven't lost since they lost against Brentford back in January. I think that's over a month now. So we're going to be looking to spoil their unbeaten party, but I don't think we'll do that. I think we'll get a draw, and I think it'll be 1-1.
Appreciate your honesty. Thank you very much, Ollie, for that. Good to hear your thoughts. Sticking with you, though, Ollie, West Ham and Manchester United, big game, and there were interest of a lot of clubs, to be honest with you. Even Tottenham and Newcastle down there have got to be careful and not being funny. I don't think either will go down, but we're talking like in terms of Tottenham, just 6 points away from West Ham. And whatever club you are, that's a gap that has to be watched. But how do you feel about this game and end with this score prediction as well?
Oh, yeah, this is a very interesting one, actually. West Ham winning their last game, they're going to be looking to continue that and spoil Man United's good form recently. And I think it could be one of Man United's toughest games yet, really, to be honest. I know they've had some tough fixtures on paper, but going into the game, they've found it a lot easier than you would have expected. But I think West Ham might be a difficult one, really, for them. But I do think they'll win 2-1, Man United. I think they'll just about get a win there. But I do think West Ham will make it very tough for them.
Arthur says, will the guy finally be able to cut his hair? Or time will tell on that one. I don't give a score prediction a lot at all, but I actually think that United will draw this. So I think it'll be incredibly frustrating for him because, of course, that means it resets again. I don't think they lose, but I don't think they get a win just because Nuno and West Ham have been a different side recently and they've just found a kind of almost like a winning formula. And I don't think they're going to set the world alight in this game or beyond, but I think the West Ham are going to be a lot more competitive from now to the end of the year. Could be wrong. Mikey, can I get your thoughts and score prediction?
This game is Man United's to lose. I think we all can agree on that one. They've been, again, 4 wins on the trot. Carrick looks like a great manager for them. He looks like he seems to get Man United. A lot of, Man United is one of those clubs where you get it or you don't. You're a Man United manager or you aren't. And I think Amorim didn't for parts of it. I think Carrick definitely does, even if it's just till the end of the season. If he's almost got, like, he's not trying to secure a job for next season, he's not got much pressure on him. He just come in the job, stabilize the club, and then if they look to it, if he does well enough, they'll appoint him. If he doesn't do well enough, even with such a great start, they'll look for better candidates. And I think they're in a better position than they were, say, when they won the FA Cup under Ten Hag, at looking for a better manager. I say a better manager. Carrick's proved himself great, but a world-class manager who's got a proven track record. So I think Man United will win this, and I think it'll be 2-1.
Great stuff. Thank you very much. Appreciate you giving me your score there. What do you reckon, Ollie?
Yeah. Oh, didn't I already answer this one?
Did you give your score though?
Yeah, I said 2-1 Man United.
2-1. Mascara, thank you very much. You're Man United. Okay, interesting. So the guy you think will get his hair cut. Next game then, Nottingham Forest and Wolves. Ollie, I will come to you with this one then. What do you reckon of this one? Again, it's a big one, not necessarily for Wolves because they probably are down and out, but it's a big one for Forest. And if it's a big one for Forest, it's a big one for Tottenham. It's a big one for Leeds. It's a big one for any club in and around that situation. How do you see this one going?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a very tough one for Forest, and they haven't really recently set the world alight, and I think Wolves are looking a lot better. They've made some good signings. Angel Gomez looks quite good, by the way. I'm not sure if he's injured or not. I know he did come off of a bit of an injury, but I think it was only cramp, so I think he might be available, but I'm not too sure. Anyway, I think it will be a 1-1 draw, actually. I think Wolves will hold Forest from getting a winner, and they'll somehow get a draw and get a point on the board.
Okay, interesting. Thank you very much. I would say that Forest are the favourites going into it. Mikey, can I get your thoughts and score prediction for Forest and Wolves at the City Ground?
I don't think it's any exaggeration to say that I don't think Wolves can be considered the favourite in any game they go into at the moment. I know that they've been a little bit better recently, and I don't mean to insult any Wolves fans who might happen to be watching, but that points record there, what is it? I think 18 points off safety now with 13 games to go. They've got to win minimum half, and they've only won one all season. So I think this is, again, every game for Wolves is like a cup final. It's like a championship playoff final. I think Forest will win this game. If there's any opponent you look at and think, oh, I'd love to play them apart from Tottenham Hotspur, it's probably Wolves. So I think this will be Forest's game, and I think Forest will go and they'll win 2-0.
Okay, thank you very much. Sticking with you, Mikey, can I get your thoughts and score prediction for Villa and Brighton?
I think for me, this is one of the standout fixtures of the game week. To be honest, I really love the idea of I love the idea of this battle. I think it will be really interesting to see how Villa approach this game. Obviously, Brighton have had their own issues at the moment, and Villa are sitting in third for all the right reasons. And I think this will be a good display of Villa's attacking prowess. I think Morgan Rogers is going to have another unreal game, and I'm backing Villa to win. I'm going to say 3-1.
Okay, you're back in Villa. Another defeat for Brighton. That will just increase the pressure on Fabian Hertzler. Ollie, can I get your thoughts and score prediction? Because, I think Mikey's right to say that this could be a good game, but both teams not in the form they want to be, particularly Brighton, as we discussed earlier.
Yeah, I don't personally see... it's another one where I don't see a draw on the cards here. I see one side winning this. Herzler's under a lot of pressure, by the way. And I think a couple more defeats and he could be gone, as we mentioned earlier. So I think he needs to get a result here. I think that's absolutely vital. And I think obviously Villa need to get back on track. Not really much pressure on them at the moment, but they do need to start winning some games. I think with Villa being at home and with a performance that they can say, we got a draw, not the best performance, not most convincing statistically, but we did get a draw. I think they will end up winning. I think they'll win 1-0. I think it'll be a close one. I think Herzler will have a much better game, but I just don't think he'll get the goal he wants.
That's been the story of Brighton's season, really, to be honest. Ollie, can I stick with you for Crystal Palace and Burnley? I hinted at earlier, didn't I? And I think I said it as well. I think Palace will go on a run. Can they make it 2 wins in a row?
Yeah, I think they will. I think Burnley a loss for ideas at the moment. I don't think there's much to ignite them again. I think Palace look a lot better side in general at the moment. I think they'll look to obviously get their second win in a row, and I think they will get that. I think they'll, if anything, I think they'll win 3-0. I think they'll batter Burnley.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. I think they're better Burnley. I think you're not the only one that thinks that. Let's just say thank you. Mikey, can I get your thoughts and score prediction? Not too much to talk about with this game, but do you think Palace can keep up, that their form from the weekend? Can they put in another good performance and big kind of cool, sharp shot against Burnley? Evidence suggests that they can win this game.
I think they will. Again, you say not too much to say. I think this is a pretty standard game. I think Everton will take the game to Burnley. Burnley will try and stay in it as long as they can. But I think we're potentially looking at a Strand Larsen goal here. I think this might be the game where he scores. And if not, I think they've got more than enough quality in Yeremy Pino, Ismail Assar, Brennan Johnson to come off to whoever starts and whoever comes on the bench, Daichi Kamada as well, to come on and give them a pretty convincing win. I'm gonna also back a 3-0.
Thank you very much. We're back in a 3-0 as well. We go into then the last few games, Man City and Fulham. Mikey, if I can stick with you. For Fulham, it's been a couple of disappointing results, but they performed really well. Mighty task for them, though, for a huge task. For Man City, they need to keep winning games to stay with Arsenal. How do you see this going? What do you reckon, Mikey?
I think this is a Man City win. I know that Fulham have been good, and I think it will be a harder task for them than they might anticipate at first. I think Fulham are a very resolute side. They will come out and they will make it difficult. I think Erling Haaland will get a taste. I think he's got a taste for the goals again, and I think it'll be him leading the line. They've got too much quality for Fulham to deal with, and I think it'll be Haaland decide. I think it'll be a 2-0 to City and a 2-1 or 2-0 to City, and I think Erling Haaland will score at least one of those goals.
Okay, thank you very much. Ollie, can I get your thoughts and score prediction? Can City get 2 wins in a row, or can Fulham return to winning ways, or will it be a draw?
I think kind of agree with Mikey, really. I think Fulham will come out and I think they'll shock Man City and score first. But I think Man City will end up winning 3-1. I think, as Mikey says, I think Haaland will get back into the goals. I reckon he'll probably get like a brace because he looks like he's at it again. He wants to score goals. I think he didn't look the player he exactly wanted to be against Liverpool. But that penalty, he looked at it again, raring to go, and I think he'll be back in the goals against Fulham at home, and I think Fulham will play well, but I think Man City look too good at the moment to lose.
Well said. Couldn't agree more. Next game then, Ollie, can I keep your attention for now and stick with you, because Sunderland and Liverpool face off at the Stadium of Light, and for Liverpool at the moment, things feel difficult, certainly not perfect anyway, and Sunderland, having said that, are perfect at home, if we use that word again. How do you see this one going? Because I don't know about you, I can't see Sunderland's immaculate home form slipping to the hands of Liverpool. I just can't see them losing.
I could see something happening if they had Szoboszlai, but without Szoboszlai, I don't know what side they really are, to be honest, because he is by far their best player, especially this season. And they're going to be lacking a lot of quality in this game. And Sunderland at home, obviously, they look a brilliant side. But I don't even see them drawing, to be honest. Liverpool, I think Sunderland will go on and win. I think they'll win. I think they'll win 1-0. I think it'll be a close game, but I do think Sunderland will run away with it at the end and nick a nice goal and get their win, because I just don't see much happening without Szoboszlai in their team. I think they'll lack much threat going forward at all, really.
Good point, because Szoboszlai, of course, has stepped in at right back and can play in midfield. So, where his natural position is midfield, of course. So, yeah, great player for them stepping up. Bit like Gravenberch was last season for Liverpool. Szoboszlai is that type of player for them this year. It's a consistent, reliable step up and, just consistently be there for the team. Mikey, can I get your thoughts on score prediction for this game? Do you think Liverpool can respond to that City defeat where they threw it away, or can Sunderland respond to their defeat against Arsenal? Both teams looking for a response, both in different ways with different meanings about this game.
I think this is probably one of the games I'm looking forward to most for the whole rest of the season. Regardless, I think this is going to be a brilliant game of football. At least I'm hoping it will be. I think Sunderland, again, at home, they are imperious. Liverpool are shaky at the best of times. Szoboszlai, as I mentioned earlier, Szoboszlai and Ekitike are their two preeminent candidates for player of the season, and they're missing one of them. They're missing the only guy who can probably play right back for them at the moment. They're missing Frimpong, Bradley, Szoboszlai. I don't know if Joe Gomez is fit or not, but I don't think he is. So they're missing a lot of players that can play down the right side of defence, and we know how fast and kind of dynamic Sunderland's wingers can be. I know Adingra's left them, but they still have pace for days. And they've got Brian Brobby, who's an immense physical specimen up top as well. So I'm going to predict a Sunderland win, and I'm going to go... I don't think they'll shut Liverpool out. I think it will be a 2-1. I think it will be a game of attack or a 3-2, a thriller, something like that. But I do predict a Sunderland win.
Thank you very much. Do appreciate it. Brentford and Arsenal is the final game then, Mikey. What do you reckon for this one? It's a big one, this.
It's a big one, and I'm very much of the opinion that Arsenal find it harder, but I can't see a world where Arsenal don't win every game that they play at the moment. I think they are that good, as much as it pains me to admit. I think they are that organised, they are that defensively resolute, they are that attackingly confident in most games that they play, and so I'm sure that Brentford will look to prove a point. And if Brentford do win, that would be great for me, and great for the majority of the league, I'm sure. But I don't think it's anything other than an Arsenal win. So I'm going to go for a 2-0 to Arsenal.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that honesty as a Spurs fan. Ollie, can I get your thoughts on score prediction? It does feel huge. Brentford are so good at home. Arsenal is so good everywhere at the moment. I mean, it feels difficult to predict both teams to drop points. Who's going to drop the most points, or will it be a draw or a point shared, which still would be disappointing, particularly for Arsenal?
Yeah, I do think Brentford are good, and there's no denying that. But I think that Arsenal are just miles better. Personally, I think Arsenal are looking great at the moment. They are, they are too good to drop any points at the moment. I don't see where they drop points. Obviously, it's going to be a hard game, as Mikey said. But I do believe they'll get a win. I think they'll win 2-0. I think that's a comfortable scoreline. I don't see Brentford scoring personally. And I think Arsenal will just drown them out eventually, because they do wear teams out, and I think they'll do that to Brentford. But I do think that Brentford will be proud of the performance they put in anyway.
Lovely stuff. Thank you very much. And that wraps us up this episode just in time for the Scarfey Talks Premier League podcast. I'm on air on one of the big Tottenham channels. We're Tottenham TV in about 3.5 minutes. So go and check that out. And if you're new, please subscribe. If you're listening on YouTube, drop us a follow and a 5-star review if you're listening by audio podcast platform. Let's see where you can find my two fantastic guests on social media. Firstly, Ollie, thank you so much for coming on regular on the podcast. Where can people follow you if they want to drop you a follow?
Yeah, thank you very much for having me on again. It's been an absolute pleasure. So my @ is Simply AFCB on Twitter. That's the only platform I use at the moment. But yeah, I'm looking forward to going on to the next one. Thank you very much.
No worries. Always an honour to have you. Thank you so much, Ollie. Keep up the great work as well. Thank you. And Mikey, great to have you on as well. Quickly becoming a regular. Thank you so much. Where can people follow you on the socials?
Happy to be here. Happy to be becoming a regular, and again, hope to be on for more to come throughout this season and beyond. You can find me at my @, which is just my full name, @Mikey Kuhlein on Twitter and Instagram.
Great stuff. You got both the names there as well. Thank you so much. Hope you enjoyed this episode. All the best, and wish your club all the best as well in Gameweek 26. Hope you enjoyed this podcast.